explaining the play a little bit and the background on it, and I've written out some notes so that I can keep myself on a leash, because I know that I don't have unlimited time, and I want to do something exciting with you guys later, so I want to talk as little as possible. Then my favorite part will be I'll invite you to participate as an audience, to interact with me in brief excerpts from the play that I'll project, and to do some creative work based on it. In between the interactive stuff, I'll share with you some excerpts from the play as well. Now the intro remarks, I call the experience of the play a story and a theater because I wrote it as both as a story and for the Thousand Faces Festival in 2017 in Edmonton. And this festival takes place annually, 118 Avenue in Alberta Avenue every year. I based the play on parts, on a distinguished massive poetic work that is titled Anthem of the Decades by a late South African Zulu poet and writer called Mazisi Kunene, and you don't have to remember the names, but if you want to remember one name, just remember Kunene. Yes, Kunene, yes. Now the production of the play included African-style storytelling, live Hindustan music, Hindustan? Yes, Hindustan from India, by Calcutta musician Srijan Chatterjee, and an Indian dancer from Toronto, and puppetry with large-scale Zulu-style masks, and by a culturally diverse ensemble of 6 Edmonton actors. Now, between now and the middle of 2021, I plan to write a trilogy based on that massive work. Now, the first part is the version that was performed in 2017, a small version. That was a compact version because of the demands of the festival. I couldn't make it too long. And then 2 others between now and mid 2021. Now, I decided on the ambitious play project to do justice to Kunene's work, Anthem of the Decade. It's a landmark African literary and poetic work. It was published in 1981. It's 300 pages plus. It's divided into more than a dozen books, kind of like the Bible, or the Quran, or the Homeric epics. And it's a total of 12,000 poetry lines. And it's based on Kunene's creative use of Zulu cosmology and mythology. The story of creation of the cosmos, the world, and us, mankind. Now, the traditional story at the heart of the poem is this. The supreme creator, Mvelinkangi, sends a message through a slow chameleon. Mankind shall live forever. He then, however, very capriciously, sends a different message through the salamander who is faster than the chameleon. Mankind shall die. Now, of course, the first message prevails because we die. Now, Kunene took the story and with his poetic vision provides much more in 3 parts. First, the highly controversial action to create mankind, which caused a divisive debate between the gods. Some gods thought that was a terrible idea to create mankind, and some gods just loved the idea. The second part is the journey of the chameleon and the salamander to take the message to mankind. And then the third part is the emergence of the ancestors and the ancestral world. Now, I was blown away the first time I read the play, the epic. I was a young man and I couldn't quite make out the story. But over time, I kept coming back to it. When I was old enough, matured enough intellectually, and in my life experience, I finally got it. It's made up of images and what I call waterfalls of images, poetic sweeps and leaps and bounds, and statements that are just make your jaw drop. And long speeches by the gods, because they have debates and they have feasts, and in the feast they have speeches. It goes on and on and on in this beautiful lush language. And sort of kind of gets in the way of the story. But it's just beautiful language. But you want the story to go on. And so sometimes the story disappears. And then all of a sudden, a storyline appears again. So, oh yeah, this is where the story ended there. Now the story's appeared again. So, I just want to share with you an excerpt from the original work, Anthem of the Decades. And these are words by Masisi Kunene, not my words. Okay. And then time was born. Millipede darkness encircled the earth, and silence surged into space like a transparent moon. Tufts of darkness were entangled in the horizon. The earth shuddered like a giant heart. High crooked mountains waited for the first fruit of the sun. As the night triumphed, the stars thrust their swords of light. They seared the black blankets of clouds, opening hidden mysteries. The Creator who molded heaven and earth and all things filled the planets with a commotion of beasts. They walked the great paths of the earth and lumbered among yawning chasms of the valleys. Mveli Nkangi, the Supreme Creator, watched the racing rivers and oceans. The waves eternally beat on the shores with new life. The valley of the earth burst open, letting loose animals to crawl on the ground, others to fly with their wings, and others to drum their hoofs into the dust. The lion thunder roaring out the first fear. Lesser beasts stared fixedly in terror, till, sensing the satisfying taste of blood, they joined in the general carnage. So, the lesson was learned. Life must continue. Good things must feed the ruthlessness of appetites. That's Masisi Kunene. He was a South African Zulu poet, scholar, professor, and activist. And he partly descended from a royal court. He belongs to a long line of oral poets, going back generations into the distant past. He was deeply influenced in his writings and creative thinking by his great-grandmother. Kunene first wrote his epic, as he did all his works, in his Zulu mother tongue, before he translated it into English, like for us, because we get to enjoy it in English. But he always believed in writing in African languages. If you're going to portray an African reality, you gotta do it in an African language. That was his philosophy. So he kind of inspires me to try in the long term to follow his examples in creating in an African language. In my case, in Swahili, which is the language of Tanzania, my native country. And I do plan to translate the trilogy eventually into Swahili. And I have a dream of having it produced in Tanzania, and I have a further, more distant dream of having it produced in South Africa in Zulu language. So taking the play, the trilogy, back to its roots, to its home language and home country. So I'd like to give you a sense of the story and the experience of Anthem of Life. And I'll do so by through the characters. Okay, here we are. So there are quite a lot of characters who were performed by the six actors. So they kind of doubled up to play all the characters that you see over there. The chorus was very, very important to provide a choral atmosphere to the whole thing. Because the choral singing and choral speech and choral utterances are very much part of African performance culture. Mveli Nkangi, who is unseen but very much present, Supreme Creator, and is the father of Nomkhubulwane, who is kind of like a princess of heaven. And she's viewed as very benevolent, always looking after human beings. And And you have, of course, storytellers. And the first man to walk the earth, Sonda, very, very important. And Sodume and Nodume are a god couple who love mankind. Nogufa, a goddess, and Somazi, a god, a couple who hate mankind, especially Nogufa. She hates mankind, and she has to be restrained from annihilating the species, mankind species. Then you have what's funny? And you have lots of gods. Lots of gods. In fact, in one part of the epic, Kunene has described the gods, and some are ugly, some are handsome, some are philosophical, and some are, all kinds of gods, sundry gods. And you have a soothsayer woman who is actually Nogufa in disguise in one of her schemes to destroy mankind, disguises herself into different forms to slow down the chameleon, carrying the positive message to mankind. And she's also the strange woman. And she also conjures up dream voices. And you have desert specters to kind of haunt the chameleon as the chameleon is making a journey and slowing it down. And you have the salamander Untulo, who has got a friend, a great snake, who actually is not dangerous at all. The great snake is Paita, is a friend of the salamander and a friend of mankind. And you have voices in the crowd. So, now I would like to, since I mentioned the chorus, I would like to get you to participate a little bit in the play by playing the part of the chorus. And I'm going to do that. I like to do that by dividing you into last name initials. Anybody starting with A, B, or C would be in group 1, right? Okay, you know yourselves. Anybody in D, E, F? 2, and then 3, 4, up to 8. So the 8th group will be people with their last name starting with W, X, I don't know if there are many of those, Y, and Z. You get it? Okay. So that is the chorus. Groups are grouped by names. Okay, and the play opens with the invocation of Mbelinkangi, the supreme creator. Like the actors kind of chant out the Mbelinkangi, and Mbelinkangi appears and starts everything off. The creation of the cosmos, the creation of the world, and the creation of mankind. So they say, these are the words. Every time the name is mentioned, you have praise phrases that are said. And I had a dream of actually this being said in different languages, but we didn't actually have time to create all that. So we'll just have to do it in English. So group number 1, you know yourselves, right? Right? A to C, and then to group number 8. So let's get started. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, my hand?
You combine the universal language of needs.
Okay, 4, 5,
Great creator.
oh nice, 6,
Hunter of deep thoughts.
7, 8, nice. There's something about creator that brings out the best. Okay, so that's okay. So we go on, and the Mbelinkangi appears, and then the performers have to conjure up what Mbelinkangi creates. And it kind of creates all kinds of phenomena. So we'll go again. Number 1.
Light.
Number 2.
Light.
Number 3.
Light.
Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Okay, so the beasts are created last. Okay, now, I want to, how many people speak another language other than English? Oh, great. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Now, can we translate these words and utter them in other languages? I'll give you the cue by calling out each word. And it doesn't have to be in the groups that I... Okay. So, how many is a word for life? Okay, good. Now don't tell me. Don't tell me. I just want you to utter it out when I give you the cue. Okay. Life. Good. Thank you. Now let's go to the second one. Okay, I'm not going to try and find out who is going to do time. I just want you to utter it out in another language. Okay. Time. Light. Chaos. Order. Earth. Water. Oh, water. Okay, nice. Air. Okay, good. Plants. What did you say? Okay, nice. Fire. Okay, and then beasts. Okay. Now the idea was that into the play would creep some other languages. In honor of Kunene, who believed in writing in original language, like in your own language, you kind of you portray your reality through your own language. Okay. And I would like to go on. Okay, so remember our groups?
Yes.
Okay, remember your groups? Okay, the groups are the same. The last names, okay. 1. And now this is in honor of the Princess of Heaven, who is the daughter of the Supreme Creator, Melinkangi. And she's first among equal, among the gods and goddesses, but she's very much like up here. But she cannot overrule the other gods. Like she can only do so much. But she's still very much the conduit of our father, Melinkangi. Whenever he has something very, very important to pass on to human beings, he would delegate it to Nomkubulwane. And because of that, Nomkubulwane is honored. And every time Nomkubulwane was mentioned in the play, the phrases were saying in honor of her. So, we're going to do that. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. 5. 6. Thank you. 7. 8. Thank you. Okay, so Melinkangi created everything, and including the first man to walk the earth. But some of the gods were not happy. Some of the gods just loved it. They thought this was a step in the right direction in creation. because they believed in creation. Now, the two gods I told you, the god and goddesses who really loved mankind, was Sodume and Nodume. And I'd like to share with you an excerpt. Sodume, man will complete our tasks of creation. Nodume, we bind all things in existence. Sodume, his mind will be so powerful, even lions shall fear him. Nodume, we who love man say, and when I say man, I didn't want to change Nene's voice. You said man all the time for mankind. Both, creation must always create. Sodume, the essence of it is change. Nodume, the reality of it centers on its varied seeds. Now, other gods do not like human beings. Among them, Somazi and Nogufa. Okay, let's hear from them. Somazi, must we have another being inhabiting the cosmos? Nogufa, aren't we gods enough? Only we should express the ultimate power of the Supreme Creator. Somazi, this creature formed in hasty foolishness of our objections will either be too weak and ill-equipped for life on earth. Nogufa, building dreams you'll never realize. Somazi, that will only set him up for frustrations. Nogufa, for which he will blame you know who. Somazi, ask the gods. This creature will either be too weak or, Nogufa, he'll grow in his independence and power to rival us. Better to strike him down, correct the grave mistake made. Somazi, and in its place, create a better species. So I would like to go on and show you some of the photographs from the production. But first I just want to tell you a little bit about the story, like what went on after the creation of mankind. And some of the gods were opposed to it, and some of the gods just loved and wanted to encourage mankind and to uplift mankind. And the Nogufa and Somazi, who did not like mankind, decided to sabotage mankind. So they went to steal the what was called the Charm of Life. The Charm of Life is a kind of device that when you have, you can create anything and you have the power to do that. And that Charm of Life was under the protection of the gods who loved mankind. Sodume and Nodume. But Somazi and Nogufa went to steal the Charm of Life, while Sodume and Nodume were out celebrating the creation of mankind. So they were in a party and they didn't know anything. The Charm of Life was stolen, but the Charm of Life had the power to complain. So the Charm of Life started crying, and the cry reached Sodume and Nodume when they were having a party. They said, oh, the Charm of Life! Somebody has violated the Charm of Life, and they come back, and they found that the Charm of Life has been stolen by Somazi and Nogufa. They steal the Charm of Life, and the Nogufa, who is barren, drinks the contents of the Charm of Life, and she's able to conceive. She becomes pregnant with wild dogs. And the wild dogs become their children, and they send the wild dogs out to the world to torment mankind. And mankind cannot escape the wild dogs. They torment them mentally and physically. And Nodume and Sodume, who love mankind, go to the Princess of Heaven, the daughter of the Supreme Creator, and ask her to intervene. And she said, I can't do anything. I can't do anything about that. Because Nogufa also has a right to her beliefs. And she doesn't like human beings. There's nothing I can do about that. But the only thing that I can do is I can make the mankind tame the wild dogs. And make the wild dogs their friends. And also steal fire from the wild dogs. Because the wild dogs were custodians of fire. and to steal the fire from the... Anyway, so that's how the story proceeds. And the lines that you said about the praises that you made to Nomkubulwane were the praises that were made by the searchers. Because the searchers went searching for Nomkubulwane to ask for her help to save mankind from the wild dogs. Okay, so now they battled the... I'd like to read my last excerpt from the play where Nsondo, the first man on earth, battles the wild dogs to get the fire from them, to save mankind. Okay, now, I cannot really compacted everything into that one fight by Nsondo. But with Kunene, there are so many people who try to battle the wild dogs and they fail, one after another. But I cannot put it all into one person because I didn't have the time in the festival. Okay, so Nsondo describes how he battled the wild dogs and stole the fire for the mankind. Twice I tried. Twice I failed. The third time I disappeared into the fierce night of caves, deep in the mountains. My heart thumped with terror, like a thunderstorm. The farther in I advanced, the louder grew the growling of the wild dogs. Startled awake by their approach, mysterious, long-armed creatures lunged at me. I burst into song with which I had come armed, having learned from my past failures. The actor playing Nsondo in the production was of Chinese heritage, and he actually broke out into a Chinese song, and it wasn't out of place at all. The mysterious creatures succumbed to my enchanted music and retreated, melting into the walls of the cave, lit by the solitary torch. Suddenly, thunderous barking surrounded me. A moment later, I was bearing off the murderous wild dogs, even as they tore at my clothing and flesh. My mind focused only on the torch. How I got hold of it, I don't know. But suddenly there I had that torch. With the fire singeing me, I kept the wild dogs at bay. With the singeing fire, I kept the wild dogs at bay. With the gleam of the torch stuck to their eyes. Slowly as the torch light held their eyes, they followed me through the cave and out of the mountain. And the wild dogs were tamed. And the mankind had fire. Okay, I would like to finish by... So that's one of the... that's the Indian dancer. She did the dance in the play a lot of times. And it was really suited the character of Nogufa. She also played Nogufa. And she was quite fierce. And the dance really added to the fierceness of Nogufa. And I played the husband, Somalji. And she later on in the play, she kind of turns at me because I turn around and come to love mankind. And she's so disappointed in me, and I was... Okay. And those are the wild dogs. Yeah. And let's see, the chameleon, played by Bill Young, of the Chinese heritage I told you about. And the masks kind of portray the gods and goddesses. That's the only way we thought that we could portray the gods and goddesses and convey the sense of cosmic space and the gods in it. And he was quite comic in that, the chameleon. And we performed the play for all ages, including kindergarten. And we had to adapt, we had to cut out some parts. But they just loved the chameleon because they totally identified with the chameleon because the chameleon is small. And that's Nogufa. Fierce eyes. Yeah. And that's it. Yeah. Okay, so once again, I'm so happy to have been able to share with you part of Anthem of Life, the play, and also through Anthem of Life, the play, Anthem of the Decades by Mazisi Kunene. So if you don't remember anything else, any other name from this evening, just remember Mazisi Kunene. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Taloa. After listening to our folk tale, we have to do some dancing. So, dancing. Are you guys ready? Are you ready? Introducing the next act, which is our